Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, chapter 8. The sons of Sagara meet Lord Kapiladeva. Text 12. Yes, 12 is on the board? Okay. Nasaduvado munikopa bharjita. Nipendra putra iti satvadamani. Katam tamoro shamayam vibhavyate. Jagat pavitratmani ke rajo bhuva. Nasadhuvado munikopa bharjita. Nipendra putra iti sattva dhamani. Katam tamo roshamayam vibhavyate. Jagat pavitratmani ke rajo bhuva. Nasadhuvado munikopa bharjita. Nirendra putra iti sattva dhamani. Katam tamo shamayam vibhavyate. Jagat pavitratmani ke rajo bhuva. Vaishnavis. Na, not. Sadhuvada, the opinion of learned persons. Munikopa, by the anger of Capilamuni. Bharjita, were burned to ashes. Nripendraputra, all the sons of Sagara Maharaja. Iti, thus, Satvadhamani, in Capilamuni, in whom the mode of goodness was predominant. Katam, how? Tama, the mode of ignorance. Roshamayam, manifested in the form of anger. Vibhavyate, can be manifested. Jagat Pavitra Atmani, in he whose body can purify the whole world. K, in the sky. Raja, dust. Bhuva, earthly. Translation. It is sometimes argued that the sons of King Sagara were burned to ashes by the fire emanating from the eyes of Capilamuni. This statement, however, is not approved by great learned persons, for Capilamuni's body is completely in the mode of goodness and therefore cannot manifest the mode of ignorance in the form of anger, just as the pure sky cannot be polluted by the dust of the earth. Text 13. Capilamuni enunciated in this material world the Sankhya philosophy, which is a strong boat with which to cross over the ocean of nescience. Indeed, a person eager to cross the ocean of the material world may take shelter of this philosophy. In such a greatly learned person, situated on the elevated platform of transcendence, how can there be any distinction between enemy and friend? Purport. One who is promoted to the transcendental position, Brahmabhuta, is always jubilant, prasannatma. He is unaffected by the false distinctions between good and bad in the material world. Therefore, such an exalted person is sama sarveshu bhuteshu. That is to say, he is equal toward everyone, not distinguishing between friend and enemy, because he is on the absolute platform, free from material contamination. He is called Paratma Bhuta or Brahma Bhuta. Capilamuni, therefore, was not at all angry at the sons of Sagara Maharaja. Rather, they were burnt to ashes by the heat of their own bodies. Om Gyanachimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Friends and enemies play a major role in material existence. In spiritual existence, friends and enemies are all for Krishna's pleasure. There are, in the spiritual world, apparent rivalries and competition, but it's all for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in the material world, the friends and enemies, the rivalries, the competition, is all for selfishness. At the topmost portion of the spiritual world, in the most confidential leelas, you see apparent competition, apparent rivalry, but 100%, it's for Krishna's pleasure. Raghunath Das Goswami, in a most elevated presentation, describes how Chandravali made a kunja for Krishna. Everything was prepared for her to be with Krishna. And then the wind blew a scent from Srimati Radharani from far off. Immediately, Krishna made an excuse. I've got something to do. He's gone. So this is rivalry, this is competition, but it's 100% for Krishna's pleasure. Meanwhile, the material world means envy, anger, all for the sake of my own separated existence from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even in Krishna Lila, you see Krishna giving instruction to Nanda Maharaj about what's going on. Why is this Govardhan, why is this Indra Puja going on? Now bear in mind that Krishna had been observing the Brijbasis performing Indra Puja for several years. It didn't say anything. The acharyas say he was very indifferent to it all. But now, this time, Krishna decided to weigh in. And therefore, observing all the hustle and bustle as the elder cowherd men are preparing the Indra Yagya, Krishna asks his father, why did he choose his father? Nanda Maharaj, because he knew my father, out of affection, will be very conscientious of my desires, what I want. So I'll ask Nanda Maharaj. Besides, he's Gopendra. He's the king of the cowherd men. So let me ask him. So he asked, Father, what is all this? Some ritual. Who's it for? Is it based on tradition? What's going on here? Nanda Maharaj at first didn't know what to make of this. Nanda Maharaj was thinking, little boy, and asking questions like that. But Krishna was very persistent in a very humble way. He knows everything, but for the sake of the Leela, he's acting like he doesn't know. Father, can you please explain? Krishna sees some hesitation. And then he, motivates his father even more by saying, you know, saintly persons don't keep any secrets. They don't distinguish between friends and enemies. Now, the acharyas say that Nanda Maharaj is thinking, that's very good for sadhus, but we're just householders. We're not sadhus. Then Krishna pointed out, even if you want to make distinctions, still, if someone is your friend and if someone is your family member, you tell them everything. So Krishna came at him from both angles. The sadhu angle, sadhus don't distinguish between friends and enemies. They have no secrets. Oh, all right. You're ordinary people, you're not sadhus. Well, but I'm a family member. There are no secrets in the family. But a much more different example, much more severe in terms of outcomes, is Prahlad Maharaj being accused by his father and being accused by his teachers appointed by his father that he is Parapaksha. He's taken the other side. He's taken the side of the enemies. Maybe you've had that experience in your dealings. Unfortunately, sometimes even amongst devotees, it can happen. Which side are you on in this? What do you think the temple should do? Let's battle. What, you think like that? You're on that side? Oh, I never suspected you would be so foolish. Everyone can see this is the way to serve Krishna. It's a fact. Sometimes there are arguments, disagreements about how to serve Krishna best. But we always proceed in a Vaishnava way. Of course, the standard of perfection in Goloka Vrindavan is all the rivalry and different ways of serving Krishna is 100% for Krishna's pleasure. we have to be a little careful. In fact, we have to be very careful that in our differences in how to serve Krishna best, we don't offend Vaishnavas. We are very well-mannered in our presentation, even in disagreement. In the Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami deals with one point, that the essential activities of bhakti, not so much what you have to dovetail, some material activity you have to dovetail to bhakti, to devotional service, but the essential activities of bhakti, Sarup Siddha, these activities bestow benefit even upon someone who performs such activities unknowingly. And so he gives the example, famous example, of a bird caught in the mouth of a dog. And as the bird is dying in the mouth of the dog is circumambulating the Vishnu temple. So then the dog dies in the process of circumambulating the Vishnu temple, and the bird goes back to God, goes to Vaikuntha. So then Jiva Goswami makes the point that if bhakti is so inconceivably powerful that a bird can achieve the supreme destination without any intent, why is it that devotees sometimes struggle? Why is it that sometimes devotees have difficulties? Imprints of their past karma may linger, as Sanatana Goswami points out in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So why is that? Look at the bird, so easy. Look at me. I got to cope with this, cope with that. What's going on? Why isn't bhakti so apparently free and easy for me, whereas for the bird, it was so simple and easy. The bird achieved the supreme destination without even having the intent. What is Jiva Goswami's answer? Offenses. Offenses to devotees. So we may know there is nam-aparad, offenses to the holy name. Then there is seva-aparad, offenses to the deity. But what about offenses to devotees? We generally think, well, that means just for the pure devotees. If you have, don't offend a pure devotee. But everyone else. Actually, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is described in one purport by Srila Prabhupada that anyone, even a neophyte, who understands and accepts that Krishna is the same as his name, such a person's a pure devotee. In other words, to be a pure devotee is a big spectrum, it's a big range, from the slightest to the most intense. From the brand new beginner in this lifetime in bhakti to someone like Prahlad Maharaj, and then beyond to the Ragatmika bhaktas of Goloka Vrindavan. So we have to be very careful. So you might say, well, I've not blasphemed any devotees. I may be a little rough with them and a little critical. But listen to the list of 6. Let's see if I can remember all 6. 6 offenses to devotees that Jiva Goswami quotes from the Skanda Purana. The first 3 or 4 you would say, I'm clear, I'm fine with all that, never done that. I haven't blasphemed a devotee. I haven't harmed a devotee. I haven't been envious, well. And I haven't been angry at it. Well, they deserved it anyway when I was angry. So I haven't blasphemed, I haven't offended. I haven't blasphemed, I haven't harmed, I haven't been envious, I haven't been angry. What about the other 2? To fail to welcome a Vaishnava properly. Think about that. And then that goes further into number 6. When you cross the path of a Vaishnava, to not show happiness. Well, that applies to my friends. But if there's Vaishnavas that I'm in a disagreement with, I don't want to cross their path. Or if I do, I'll certainly let them know that they're in Maya. So just think. To show joy every time you meet a devotee. I've been thinking about this a lot myself. To not show that happiness upon meeting a devotee, the Shastra says is an offense. If we think about those 6, we become much more conscientious. It may seem a challenge. Well, come on, Maharaj, how am I supposed to go through my devotional service without showing anger? In fact, I've got to be happy every time a Vaishnava crosses my path. You know, there are people here, there are devotees here I've had major disagreements with. I'm supposed to show happiness crossing their path? This is what we all have to work on. Now, let me ask you this. Remember when you were brand new to bhakti practice? How many of you remember that every devotee you met, you thought, perfect angel, such a glorious personality? How many of you remember? Raise your hand. Oh, they're all so wonderful. Oh, coming to the temple is like drowning in a pool of Vaikuntha ecstasy. All the devotees are Siddha Sarup. And then what happens? As the years go by, you don't simply become familiar, you become critical. And you feel your criticism is justified because you know best and they don't. This is what happens to us. Of course, nectar of instruction, as you've learned in your Bhakti Shastri class here, nectar of instruction says it's your responsibility to distinguish between different levels of devotees. Someone may be not practicing properly. You treat them one way. Someone is established in their sadhana. You treat them another way. But that doesn't mean you misbehave. That doesn't mean to distinguish between how you treat someone who's chanting Hare Krishna once in a while. You distinguish between them and a Mahabhagavat. That doesn't mean that everyone else besides the topmost devotee, as you see it, you can be rough in your dealings. In other words, Jiva Goswami is pointing out, you've got to be careful at all times with dealing with Vaishnavas. Even while you're spiritually distinguishing, you still have to be very careful. So then just think, I meet a Vaishnava today. I didn't show happiness? Yeah, Prabhu, yeah, right. Or internally you're thinking, oh, it's so-and-so Das. That's not what Jiva Goswami has in mind when he says show happiness in meeting a devotee. But how can I show happiness meeting this devotee when this devotee did this to me, he did that to me, or he wants this to happen to the temple, and I don't want that to happen to the temple. How can I show happiness? We have to conscientiously try to apply this. It seems insurmountable, but it's the way to revive your initial enthusiasm in bhakti when you thought all the devotees are so saintly and I'm nothing. Remember those good old days? In the chapter where Prahlad Maharaj is dialoguing with his teachers, Sunda and Amarka, they lived near Hiranyakashipu's palace. Hiranyakashipu is a conscientious father. I'm sending my boy to school, a school right near our home. Parents generally like to do that, if they can, right? Just like those who can afford to live in Albert Park, they send their kids to the, what is it called, Middle Park School? And you went there. Yes, you're finished now, yes. Is it called the Middle Park? Middle Park Primary. You went also? Okay. So the parents like that. My children, they go to the temples right nearby. They go to the school where so many devotee children are. So Hiranyakashipu was a conscientious parent. Sandanamarka, sons of Shukracharya, they're right nearby. That's where my son will get his education in how to be demoniac. Now, Shukracharya shouldn't have become the priest of Hiranyakashipu. If Shukracharya is a properly functioning brahmana, he should only give instruction as a priest. He should only perform priestly duties for those who have some spiritual inclination. But why is he the official priest for Hiranyakashipu and the Asuras? He wants the donations. So in that way, his Brahminical status is compromised, as well as that of his sons, Sandanamarka. So the key theme when you read Gauranga Darshan's study guides, is always the key themes. Beautifully laid out with different colors. So one key theme of that chapter is intelligence, polluted intelligence. Hiranyakashipu brings this point up again and again. How has my boy's intelligence been polluted? Sandanamarka are wondering amongst themselves as they interrogate Prahlad. How has your intelligence become so contaminated that you, Padapaksha, you're on the other side. You've taken shelter of the side of the people who've murdered your uncle, Hiranyaksha. How can you do this? What's distorted your intelligence? What has confused your thinking process? This is a central point throughout the chapter. The buddhi, the intelligence, has been compromised, been ruined. That's what Hiranyakashipu was most concerned about. Who has messed with my son's intelligence? So at first, as you know, you've seen the drama so many times. Any of the kids here played in such a drama? You never did. Never did. Sandanamarka want to know. Prahlad. They try to be nice to him at first. They don't get fierce with him because they want Prahlad to spill the beans. They want him to tell the names of the Vaishnavas who have polluted his intelligence. Prahlad, please tell us. You're not talking like the other students. Something has happened to your intelligence. Can you give us the names of those who have ruined you? So this discussion of polluted intelligence goes on. And finally, Sandanamarka hammer home the point. You have taken the side of the enemy. Your intelligence is on the side of the enemy. Very prominent, this theme. Friends and enemies. So what does Prahlad say? Tasmai Bhagavate Namah. I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because it's by his illusory energy that conditioned souls captured in the grip of Maya make this distinction between friends and enemies. I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Lord, knowing that it's his Maya that's causing this false duality to happen. And then he adds, I've heard about this from my spiritual master, Narada Muni, and now I'm seeing it happen. This is first-class life. To hear and then to observe based on what you've heard. To hear the knowledge and then put it into action. Jnana Vijnana. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutasto Vijitendriya. You can control your senses by knowledge and then realize knowledge by putting the knowledge into action. And in this way, your senses can be controlled. There's no mystery in bhakti about how to control the senses. You engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses. So Prahlad then talks about what happened to me. Why don't I carve the whole world up into friends and enemies? I don't do that because I've received the mercy of the Supreme Lord. I please the Supreme Lord through devotional service. Therefore, I don't divide the population into who's the friend, who's the enemy. That's how it's happened to me. I've pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What was Sandanamaka's reaction upon hearing this? Bring a stick! Bring a stick! Sweet words don't work with this character. Bring a stick. They wanted Prahlad to imbibe the teachings of materialistic politics. Sama, sweet words, if there's some discordant person, some person who's speaking contrary to the government, then there's Sama. The king calls the person in. My dear so-and-so, you're such a great person. Just like Kamsa did with Akrura. My dear Akrura, I have no better friend than you in the Yadu dynasty. I'm taking shelter of you, just like the demigods take shelter of Vishnu. I have a nice task for you to do. You see this beautiful, brand new Mercedes chariot? I want you to take this to Vrindavan and bring back Krishna and Balaram. So the acharyas point out that Kamsa's thinking, Vaishnavas are simple. They're simple-minded. They're easily swayed. Otherwise, how else could they be Vaishnavas if they weren't sentimental? But when Akrura sees, with his simplicity, when he sees this brand new chariot, his mind will be blown. Ooh, I'll do anything to ride on that Mercedes chariot. That's what Kamsa's thinking. And what is Akrura thinking? I'm so glad you're giving me a brand new luxurious chariot to go to Vrindavan, a chariot that's never been ridden on by anyone before, because I wouldn't want to get them in a chariot that a demon like you has ridden on. So as Krishna says in the second chapter of Gita, well, what is night for one class of persons is day for the other, and vice versa. Sweet words, sama. What's next? Dana. You offer a position. I like the way Prabhupada explains it. Give any kind of position. Give some money. It doesn't matter what the position is. Just give a position. Then if that doesn't work, beta. Cause division in the person's camp. Divide and conquer. And then finally, danda. Execution, firing squad, prison, the likes. So Sanda and Amarka reach for number 4. Danda, punishment. Bring a stick, bring a stick. Amidst all this discussion about friends and enemies, because it goes on, they just don't give up on Prahlad. Enemies, enemies. You sided with the enemies. Your intelligence has been spoiled by the enemies. How much has our intelligence been co-opted by a consumer society? How much has our intelligence been taken over by desires for prestige, for respect, for social acclaim? Just see my latest career move. Did you know about my investment properties? As we advance in bhakti, our intelligence should become more and more purified. We see ekatvam anupashyata. authorize oneness. Why friends and enemies? Everyone is, number one, a carrier of the supersoul in their heart. Number two, everyone is a servant of the Supreme Lord. This vision becomes more and more prominent in the heart of a practicing devotee. Amidst the discussion of friends and enemies by Sandanamarka and then Prahlad's response, Prabhupada makes some very astonishing points. He says that, and these points we can remember and try to apply them. It's going to take work, but what else is life meant for than to work on our dealings with devotees? It's a lifetime career, just like chanting Hare Krishna with attention is a lifetime career. Not that, oh, I've been trying to hear the holy name for 6 months. Where is Krishna? Similarly, working on our dealings with devotees is a lifetime's process, which gets sweeter and sweeter in spite of obstacles. Sometimes there is mistreatment, sometimes severe misunderstandings. Still, we hold tight to the goal. We keep our eyes on the prize. What's the prize? Dealings with devotees in a way that is purely Krishna conscious. This will bring us back to the glory days when we first met devotees and thought each devotee was so advanced and we were so tiny and decrepit. So Prabhupada gives the point that you should, upon meeting a devotee, upon encountering a devotee, you should think, I have so much to learn from this person. What do you think about that attitude? Every time you deal with a devotee, I've got so much to learn from you. You don't have to say it, but that's your attitude. You're doing something better than me. At least one thing better than me. At least give them that credit. They're actually doing everything better than you, but give them credit for at least one thing. Get your foot in the door of proper dealings with devotees. This devotee is doing so much better than me, and I can learn. This is Vaishnava sport. We don't waste our time with silly, mundane sports. Although I know all the young boys of the devotees love basketball, but even more than cricket. But we don't get absorbed in that when we have our own Vaishnava sport. Dealings with devotees, observing devotees, seeing their glorious abilities, which we don't have. So what else? Seeing every devotee as a person you can learn something from. Number two, appreciate and praise devotees. In Chaupati Temple and Gopalaneko village, they're very expert at that. They've been trained up how to praise devotees. Appreciate a devotee's service. Let these mentalities overwhelm us. That is my prayer. So yes, this doesn't mean, because someone will always point out, Maharaj, what about instances where devotees are mistreated, misunderstood? Unfortunately, that happens, but that doesn't mean we should take our eyes off the prize. We have our own fate, our own destiny that we can take charge of. Not everything in our life is out of our control. Just like I've been meditating deeply on what happened to Bharat Maharaj. It's very deep. I looked at Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's study guide. Let's see if I can, what I'll find here. He gives a little bit. He's expert at how not to say too much. That's a very great art, how to say something but not too much. Don't overload the devotees with all the details from this acharya, that acharya, another acharya, and so you lose sight of the forest. because you're so caught up in one little leaf on one tree. Because it's endless, the ocean of commentary. So, Bharat Maharaj was thrust into a situation which is the product, you could say, of his karma. But then again, you see Prabhupada pointing out, he purposely fell down. The situation was thrust upon him, no doubt, but his response was one of purposeful neglect of his spiritual activities and his becoming attached to the little deer. So because he purposely fell down, he was punished to take birth as a deer, but a jatismar deer, a deer that could remember past life. So the situation was a karmic entanglement presented to him. This happens to us also. So we're caught in some situation. Where did that come from? But how do we respond? That we are in charge of. Our response. We can't control the whole world. But how do we respond? Bharat Maharaj responded the wrong way. Of course, we can go deeper into that, which I won't do today. Because as Sanatana Goswami points out in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and Gauranga Darshan Prabhu has promised one day there'll be a study guide for that. So Sanatana Goswami says that actually great souls like Bharat Maharaj, even Sobari Muni in the 9th canto, he saw 2 fish procreating and abandoned his mystic yoga and went out to change his life. So Sanatana Goswami points out that they're actually great souls, not at fault, but they're showing you what not to do. Because we think that a great soul should always show the best thing to do, so we can follow their example. But Sanatana says their compassion is so great that sometimes some of them will show you what not to do by their own example. So Bharat Maharaj is showing, don't do like me. In fact, in the 9th canto, Sobari Muni even says, everyone should learn from my example. Don't do this. Who else does Brihad Bhagavatamrita give as an example of that? Yudhisthira and gambling. He's showing, don't do this. I lost my wife. Don't do this. Who else? Maharaj Nriga in Krishna Lila is showing, don't misappropriate the property of a brahmana. Very interesting. Finally, another reason why Bharat Maharaj went through what he went through, very deep. Sanatana Goswami points out that he's hiding his bhakti ecstasies. He's not letting you see his internal life, his interior. He wants to be left alone. He'd rather be unjustly condemned than to be honored and praised. Think about that one. It's his way of saying, leave me alone, leave me with my internal ecstasies. Think whatever you like about me. I don't care. I don't want you disturbing my internal spiritual ecstasies. So therefore, you can think like this about me. You think I'm such and such, I'm fallen, whatever. Go on. Yes, this is what the commentary explains. It's amazing. So let us become committed to better Vaishnava relationships. And it takes work, and we're not glossing over misunderstandings, mistreatments. This is the age of Kali, and that means social interactions are often problematic. Or the old Bengali proverb Prabhupada used to quote, if you have a bunch of cooking pots on a cart or on a rickshaw going from one place to another, it's going to happen during the journey that the pots will start banging against each other a little bit. You got to expect that. So yes, we're as also Prabhupada said, we're not utopians. We acknowledge there are going to be disagreements, there are going to be difficulties, misunderstandings, but it's how we respond to those events that shows where we're at. So you see Prahlad's response. I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tasmai Bhagavate Namaha. It's his energy that's causing all this to happen. He remains firm in his bhakti response. He explains, because the Lord is pleased with me, I no longer subscribe to this doctrine of friends and enemies. So finally, what do you see going on in the world today? You thought that even though people are not devotees of Krishna, they still have good qualities. What you're seeing in the world today, of course, we devotees have a lot to work on ourselves, but what you're seeing in the world today is increased conflict based on friends and enemies. Class divisions, religious divisions, ethnic divisions. You would think humanity should be over all this. But no, same old, upadhis, bodily designations. That's me. I am of this class, I am of this culture, I am of this color, I am of this creed, I am of this country. That's me. Same old Maya. Millennium after millennium, century after century, no one has a solution to that. In spite of their religiosity, so much of their religiosity, when it's present, mundane religiosity with some spiritual potency there, still, it's generally based on the body. And how can there be any peace when even the religionists cannot present that we're different from the body and practical ways of living and being together that's not based on designations, bodily designations. So there are 5 C's. I often point this out when I'm giving class in Mayapur. 5 C's that millennium after millennium hypnotize people into the depths of Maya. I'm of this class. I'm of this color. I'm of this creed. I'm of this culture. I'm of this country. The 5 C's. This is what has the whole world in its grip. How are you going to purify those upadhis? There is no process for purifying bodily designations as thoroughly as chanting the Maha Mantra. It's a process that at the minimal level cleanses the heart of the dirt that causes you to think, this is my country, this is my culture, this is my creed, this is my color. The more we can chant Hare Krishna seriously and inspire others to do that, because that's part of the vision of not dividing the world into friends and enemies. You see everyone as an opportunity to give Krishna's message to. So that should be our focus, how to give Krishna's message to everyone. Not that I am this body, you are that body. Bodily roles are so important in the eyes of the conditioned souls today. As always, this is my gender. I'm from this country. This is my color. What color are you? Sometimes people ask me, when I go to India, they look at me like, they try to figure out. Then they very carefully try. They say some words in Hindi to see if I'll respond. I just say, Hindi ne. Oh, he knows Hindi. they look, they sometimes, especially in Bengal, when I land at the airport in Calcutta, the immigration officer looks at me often, "Why do you not speak Bengali?" I said, "Because I'm from New York." So they look, well, his skin is brown, his palms are red, his wrists are yellow. What is he? Hare Krishna. So you want to know what causes all the problems in the world? It is upadi. You're a different upadi than mine? Let's fight. That's what's going on. Century after century. So what can Krishna's devotees offer to the world? The process that actually cleanses the heart of this dirt that's causing all the problems. So we thank Prahlad for his taking a firm stand. Tasmai Bhagavate Namaha. I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose Maya all this friendship and enemy talk is going on. Because the Lord is pleased with me, I am free from such a syndrome. And then remember Sandanamarka's reaction. Bring a stick. What is this nonsense talk about no friends and no enemies? Let us remember our lifetime career, how to deal with Vaishnavas. And think seriously about that list of 6 Jiva Goswami quotes from Skanda Purana. Some of them seem very difficult to avoid because there's always, unfortunately, for most of us, there's always someone who we've had a problem with. And how am I supposed to be happy when I see such a devotee? When that devotee thinks this about me wrongly, or that devotee has another way of serving Krishna that I don't agree with? What's the usual response in Kali Yuga when that happens? Get on social media. Stir it up. Just one movement of one finger on a keyboard can cause oceans of commotion. So yes, there are different visions of how best to please Krishna, no doubt, but we should be very careful how we disagree. And that will be the one distinguishing feature of our bhakti life. We know how to disagree. We know how to value Vaishnavas. We know how to learn from them. We praise them. There's always something you can say about some devotee that you can praise. This makes bhakti full of zip and pop and bang. So if you're feeling that things are getting a bit dry, your spiritual life is getting a bit boring, just get into the whole sport of Vaishnava appreciation. Hare Krishna. Any questions? You can ask your question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the nice class. Maharaj, you mentioned how we should have a loving relationship with all the devotees.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
I admit it's not an overnight goal for most, but as I say, keep your eyes on the prize.
But sometimes we see many of the devotees, they are wonderfully engaged in the service of Sri Guru and Gauranga, that they find themselves so busy that they cannot inquire about the well-being of calling each other. Of course, I know all the devotees like love. We have the wish for the best spiritual well-being of each of the devotees. But what about expressing the same?
You notice that, so you should set the example. Just like you attentively hear Bhagavatam class, how many days a week? Every day. I'm envious. I have to travel, often I'm jet lagged, but you are here every day. So you, just as you're conscientious being here every day, be conscientious in your appreciation of devotees, inquiring about their welfare. You all have your devotee care program here. So you be the change you want to see in others. Start out at your age and you'll have a beautiful life. I guarantee it. Anything else? Yes, way in the back, next to Bhakti Sar.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the Bhagavatam, very nice class. I just had a question from the end of the session. You mentioned that there are 5 C's that brings like a millennium after millennium a person to be in ignorance.
Do you know them? Did you memorize them?
Maharaj, I was asking about that. Like you mentioned, chanting is one of them. Can you please?
Chanting?
No, I mean, chanting will
My
remove.
accent must have bewildered you.
So, sorry, Maharaj.
Class, color, creed, culture, country.
Okay.
That's what, these are the upadhis that are causing so much problem in the world.
Okay.
And now that you've asked, I'll comment further. It's even known amongst mundane scholars, these 5 C's, but they have no solution. So they say that the problem is in each of those 5 categories, there's an illusion that there'll be real unity based on this. We're from the same country. There'll be unity. We're the same social class. There's unity. We have the same culture. Unity. He said that is an illusion at the bottom of each one of those 5 categories. You cannot have real unity based on these external designations. But it doesn't look like that, right? Oh, you're from South India? I'm from South India. Oh, you're from the same part of South India as me. Amazing. We can bond. That's the solution to all the world's problems. Just bond with people from the same town as you. Oh, you're from 10 miles away from where I was born. Oh. There's one couple there managing Gitanagari Farm Project in the USA. And they're originally from South Africa, but of course their family's from India. And so they wanted to marry. But there's a problem. His family is from North India, and her family's from South India. Major problem. So they had to secretly marry in a garage. And neither of their parents would attend. They couldn't, one set of parents, they couldn't tell. The other set of parents, they told, but they wouldn't come because of this great offense. So you think, well, they're both from India, their family line's from India, what's the problem? But not the right part of India. So I asked them, what's going on here? Why this problem? So then I was instructed in Divya Gyan, divine knowledge. What's the Divya Gyan they told me? See, Maharaj, you have to understand. The North Indians think the South Indians are Shudras, and the South Indians think the North Indians are impure. Therefore, they can't be together. Do you understand? I said, no. So I didn't accept the Divya Gyan. So it's problems like these that are disturbing the whole world because people take these things so seriously. Can you imagine not going to the wedding of your own child because your child, what if your child is marrying someone not from India, an Australian? But in this case, both from India, but just North India, South India. Finally, the parents got over it. And then how did they get over it? The parents became devotees. So whenever I see the parents, I remind them, you. I know in India you don't do that, but I can get away with it. Do you remember you wouldn't attend the marriage of your own son because he's marrying a girl from South India? Oh, Maharaj, please. I back off it. I don't dig in. I don't rub it in. But it's funny. Now they laugh at it because they're devotees. They're chanting Hare Krishna. Their grip on these upadhis has slackened. Anything else?
Thank you.
Way up in the front, we need the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. My question is about understanding the great souls. Like in Bhagavatam and many other Puranas, we see that basically it's about Jaya and Vijaya. They get cursed and they come to earth as Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, and Shishupal, etc. So how to look at them, like if they are great devotees of the Lord who are coming to do Leelas here. So if you think, oh, someone is killing Ravana, is it a Vaishnava Aparadha?
What's the last thing you said?
If we think like Lord is killing Ravana and we are celebrating that, is it a Vaishnava Aparadha?
By whom?
By us. Like
To do what?
to think they are not the devotees of the Lord. Is it an offense? I
They're
mean,
not acting in capacities of being devotees. They're fully into being demons, but ultimately it's for Krishna's pleasure. We don't approve of their behavior, in other words.
Okay.
But if you want to go to the deep level, yes, they are devotees who voluntarily took on the service of being demons to give Krishna, as Lord Nrsimhadev, to give him pleasure in fighting ferocious demons. But we don't glorify their demoniac behavior. Yes. Can pass the microphone over.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. About the 5 C's, obviously on the material platform they cause so much conflict and hatred, but should we aim to completely overcome them, or can they be spiritualized and used in service?
That's an interesting question. Some academics who study designations, especially country, nationalism, they have concluded, and I've read this, they have concluded that human beings will not get over their identifying with the nationality. They won't get over nationalism, so why don't we use this bodily identification, since they're not going to get over it, why don't we steer it in the right direction? In other words, they've admitted defeat. We can't beat it. They thought there would be one world, globalism and all that, and the world's becoming more fragmented than ever, more argumentative than ever. So they say, since people can't get over nationalism, we've got to work with it. Let's work with the designation. Let's work with the upadhi. No sarva upadhi vinir muktam. No process for purifying the upadhi. No, that's not possible. Let's just manipulate people based on their nationality, because people can't get over their nationality. That's the latest. What do you think? Are you on board for that?
It doesn't really make sense to me.
It makes perfect sense to them. You are the body. Look, we tried a one world, globalistic point of view, one world market, democracy all over the world. We tried it. It's fallen apart. So let's just be nationalistic and let people identify in that way and then try to deal with that. Because there's no other solution. Welcome to the age of Kali.
Thank you.
Get out as quick as you can.
I'll try. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, you mentioned about that devotees can have different viewpoints on how to serve Krishna. Or how
You've
to
never seen that?
seen that.
Welcome to Melbourne.
So, can you please explain the Vaishnava way of disagreeing, or how can we?
Yes, that's a very difficult art, but it has to be learned. You can just, in a mood of appreciation, Prabhu, I disagree, or I have a different vision, without denigrating the person. You know what denigrating means? Without minimizing the person. Like, how could you think like that? You've got to be in Maya. How could you think to serve Krishna in that way? Appreciate their sincerity. At the same time, always, if it's your position, speak your disagreement in very polite, humble, respectful terms. If it's your service, it may not be your service. I know one example from the life of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There was one person in the temple, in the ashram in Calcutta, who was always finding faults with devotees. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called him in and said, you know, as guru, I have to do the service of correcting others. Why do you want to take on yourself such austerity? So the devotee got the point. Why? It's not my service to correct everyone. It's an austerity. Why should I unnecessarily take on such an austerity when I don't have to? You understand? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. I have this question, like when we deal with our friends in a friend circle, if everybody tries to correct each other, it just becomes so normalized that they stop listening to each other. I mean, that don't have much emphasis on them, like as a senior devotee, or if a senior devotee guides us, like. So how we see that, or how we can improve in that sense.
I'm trying to grasp what you're saying now.
Like Maharaj, when we have close association with our friends.
When we have what situation?
Close association with our friends.
Close, yes.
And then when we discuss a lot of topics together.
Discuss what kind of topics? That's the important thing.
Like sometimes we sit together and we discuss like this was not the thing that we should do as per Vaishnava etiquette. And sometimes when we discuss those things, we tend to normalize what they're saying rather than listening to them very carefully, because...
What do you mean you tend to normalize? It's a fancy word, but what do you mean by it?
Like sometimes we neglect, like we don't take that very seriously.
Take what very seriously?
The guidance that they have given us, or the discussion that we had.
I'm thinking.
Sorry, Maharaj.
First of all, it's very good that you have friends who are devotees.
Yes.
And yes, as we become more Krishna conscious, we learn how to elevate the conversation, whatever it is, to something that has to do with Krishna's service. That may take a while to learn that art. So we don't want to drive the beginners away. You're not talking directly 100% about Krishna at this moment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But we should know what is the best behavior in bhakti. What are the best things to talk about? And you can set the example. How to steer the conversation towards Krishna's service.
Yeah.
You don't have to shut the person down immediately. Up, stop right there. Because we're human beings. We're human beings, and we have our human side. Just like Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita is expressing his human side. Oh, Krishna, if I fight, this will happen, that'll happen. I don't know what's better, to be conquered or to conquer. He's expressing his human side. But then he presents the situation to Krishna. What should I do? So sooner or later, and better as soon as possible, bring the discussion around to what could be productive for Krishna's service.
Yeah.
Sometimes listening to the other person. They want to pour out their troubles.
Yeah.
But you're listening with the aim of improving their service and improving your service.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.